Welcome back, my crafty friends, and this is part 2 of my Flip Flap Folio. So yesterday we made the folio and added a few of the tuck spots and pockets, and today I've got my Be Happy stationery kit. I've got my pink ribbon and lace, my cream ribbon and lace, and some pink flowers, and my pink collage tray. And I'm going to pull all this together and decorate the folio. So this is the Be Happy stationery kit I'm going to use in this folio. It's Love is in the Air, and you can download this kit with the link that's in my description below to get a 30% discount. It's a really lovely kit. It's got some lovely vintage images and a kind of pink rose floral theme, which is right up my alley. I've also got some book pages. I have loads of book pages because I've just printed the kit onto printer paper. I'm going to use the book pages to back the kit. So I'm going to start with this first open up folio part and choosing one of these little scrapbook papers that I picked up ages ago. I'm just going to create a pocket on the front of the lower flap. So as I said, I'm gluing it onto the book paper. It just gives the scrapbook paper a little bit of sturdiness, if that's a word. And it just means that it's not going to rip the minute you try and put anything in it. So it's just rounding off the corners, and I'm going to distress the pocket. But first I just use my round hole punches and I half punch to create a recess that you can easily access the pockets with. That way, if I want to put something smaller in the pocket, you can still get it out without ripping the pocket. So I have purchased another one of these squeezy bottles. I got 2 for £1 in the range today, and I'm going to have another go. I'm just using clear PVA. As I said last video, I don't overly get on with these bottles because they clog up, because I'm terrible at putting the lids back on things. But let's have another go. So that's the bottom pocket done, and then I'm going to use one of the smaller images to create a bit of a cluster on the top and use some of the papers to create pockets in the middle. So I really like this page. It's got the lovely Eiffel Tower, City of Love, and I might use that as kind of like a belly band tuck spot. I'm not sure, in the middle. But initially, I just want this image off the side with the, what are they called? Lampposts and roses. And I think this would be really nice just to create a tuck spot pocket. And it fits nicely in the middle. So I'm tearing round the image. Throughout this piece, I'm going to use torn edges rather than cut edges, because I just think it adds to the kind of distressed, vintagey feel of the Love is in the Air kit. Just snipping in the corners, and then that will actually fit beautifully, spot on, perfectly on the first flap. So just backing it onto the book page, just give it that little bit of sturdiness. Again, it is a real word. And then to keep that ripped edge going, I'm going to rip round the edge to just add almost another layer to the pocket. And the book page means that the image doesn't get lost on the background. My fingers aren't quite long enough to rip all the way through, but it works. So I'm just going to glue around the edges and glue this down. I will grab a piece of my acetate sticker back in that I use to pop in the pocket to make sure it doesn't completely stick down. So just pop in a bit more PVA all the way around. Realise this wasn't stuck down properly, so just really making sure the back end and everything's stuck down. Here we go. gluing around. Stick it down. Trying to line it up with the edge of the page. Yeah. Then I realised while I was fighting with the acetate that I'd actually stuck it in upside down. So I had to peel it off, and whilst peeling it off, I lost the flaps. But that doesn't really matter. I'm just going to re-glue. And it does mean the flap that I had to peel it off will need covering, but we're going to use some Be Happy stationery to do that. I also spilled my coffee, and yeah, it just was all going wrong. So we'll leave that to dry and concentrate on this page. So I'm going to use the other half of that sheet, and I'm going to cut it to size and maybe create a bit of a belly band over the top to hold some of the images. It's got some lovely portrait images I'd like to use, and kind of have like a love letter type theme under a belly band. And yeah, so let's just cover the mistake. So cover this flap with this piece of paper, and I like the fact it's got very faint lines on it as well, so it's almost like a letter writing kit. So just tearing it to size, distress the edges, and then I'm going to line it up with this flap and completely cover this flap with this part of the Be Happy Lovers in the Air kit. Done, 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 done. Just cleaning up everything. So I decided I wanted to use some ribbon. I've got this really lovely dusky pink ribbon to create the belly band. So just peeling off the top of that background. I do love to peel things back off. I was winging it, completely winging it today, and didn't really have a plan for these pages. Thank heavens you can edit the videos, speed them up a bit, otherwise this video was about an hour and 45 minutes long. So I've sped it all up and I'm talking over the top of it. I do like to do the make videos in real time, but for this one it was just too long. And yeah, there were lots of little bits where I just sat looking at the page, and I thought, no, actually I can cut those bits out and make the video a little bit quicker. So firstly, I'm knocking the camera over, and then I'm just going to clip that to dry, leave it to dry, and then come back, pull out the little bit of plastic, and then we've got that pocket, and we've got the belly band on top of the Eiffel Tower backing paper. And that little bit of that sheet that's left, I'm just going to fold in half and use that to cover up. Do you remember the raw edge where we joined the two folio folds together? So just covering it with that. I know in yesterday's video I said about using washi tape, but let's just use up a bit of the paper. Let's use what we've got. I will get the washi tapes out at some point. I do love a washi tape. Okay. There we go. So let's concentrate on doing those pockets on the inside. So I'm going to open up the flaps, and then I'm going to have a think about doing the pocket on the inside. I have got some teeny tiny envelopes, they're like payday envelopes. These are tea bag drawstring bags and like a wax paper bag. And I'd really like to use the drawstring bag, not quite sure, probably need to think that through a bit more. I may still use it somewhere. I love that corner of this page. The florals are lovely. It's got some really lovely shades of pink and just a splash of purple, which is really nice. It just kind of adds another element to the page. And I'm not sure this bag is going to work, so I'm going to grab the teeny tiny envelopes and just drawing around the edge of the torn bit I've cut out. I'm just going to cut it about 1/2 centimetre smaller than the drawn edge. That way, when I stick it on the back of the paper, you're not going to see the brown envelope. Sometimes I use the brown envelopes as is. I love envelopes. I've got so many of them. They just create instant pockets without even having to think too much about it. So that one's just going to sit there. And then I'd like to create a larger one behind. So you've got like a double pocket. Again, trying to fit the bag in. It's not going to work. So I'm going to use part of this paper, carrying on the floral corner edge theme. And I'm just going to tear out this kind of peony and the bit. And I just think it coordinates really nicely. It's a little bit big, but I am going to use the rose that I cut off the end in a minute. So just sticking this envelope onto the back, which is perfect because it fits nicely. And then I'm just going to tear along that edge, that bottom edge, distress the whole thing, and then stick the 2 pockets in the middle here. I've not really got as far as to thinking what I'm going to fill the pockets with. Be Happy does have really lovely lace background papers, so I might incorporate them into this make because it fits really nicely with the Love in the Air, the pink, the earthy tones theme. Just going to distress the edges. Add in a little bit more. And then I'm going to stick these down. So just gluing actually on the envelope and just round those 2 edges of the closed envelope. And I want them at a slight angle so that you can pop things in. So I'll just pop little bits of scrap in so we can see that they are pockets. And you can see where the muted tones of the backgrounds have really worked. The muted tones of the scrapbooking paper that I used to create the actual basis of the folio. And it works really nicely with this Love is in the Air kit because it just brings all those colours together. Okay, so just checking out the pockets. I'm going to create a little cluster using that rose to go on this front flap, and using my paper pinking shears, I do have fabric ones as well, just cutting out one of the larger stamps, and I want to use that with the rose that I cut off that I tore off the pocket, a little bit of the book paper, and just build up a little bit of a cluster to go on the front. I don't want anything too 3D because I still want the folio to close quite flat. So I'm just going to use little bits of scrap, really, pulling it together, making sure I stick to the colour theme, and using some of the Be Happy stationery just to Love is in the Air kit to pull it all together. Now what I do have is in my scrap papers, I've got a whole load of pink ones, and I'm just choosing some that corresponds with the backing and with the image Be Happy stationery paper, and just pulling that together. So I'm just going to use a bit of PVA to stick them together, making sure you can see each of the layers as you go. Stick them on each other, and I'm just going to use these teeny tiny flowers. I think these were from Home Bargains. I'm not sure if they still got them, and they might have been in their Mother's Day / Easter collection, and I just picked up their lovely little paper flowers. They did come in bunches of 3 with the little burlap ribbon, and when I was taking them out of the pack I pulled them all apart, but I'm just going to glue them down. I'll worry about the petals in a minute. And I'm just going to clip that together to let it dry. And once it's dry, then we will stick that cluster onto the front page. I've also got this butterfly that I did cut out for another make, and I can't remember which one, but I'd like to include that because it's got the lovely colour. So in my fabric scraps, I've got loads of this like organza. I think they're actually circus ribbons or circus bits of fabric, but using a stabby tool, it's really easy to pull it apart, distress it a bit. You could blast it with a heat gun as well. That really works as well. But it just creates a really nice, simple lift and adds another little bit of texture to your makes, just making the focal points stand out a little bit, and pull them off the page. So for the antennae, which I cut off when I fussy cut this to use in the other project, I'm just going to use 2 of those stems out of those paper flowers. Sticking it down my trusty masking tape, and then let's pull that together. You can bend these because they're on it's quite a sturdy burlap actually. And I'm going to stick them onto that bottom corner and weigh that down to dry. There we go. And whilst that dries, just going to finish off the cluster, making sure I stick the petals down. There you go. And then I'm going to use another bit of that organza shiny stuff from that scarf just to back round the cluster. Whilst doing this one, I did stab my finger, which you'll see in a minute. Red is not part of the colour scheme. So oh, seriously, it's one of those days today. I'm dropping things. But I wanted to get this make underway. So I now have a plaster. I've got my dinosaur plasters. And I'm just going round the edge of the butterfly with one of my paint markers. This is my bronze one, which I've used quite a bit. And the, there we go, dinosaur plaster. The butterfly is from a cardstock pack. It's from a card topper pack, actually. So it's a little bit shiny, which meant I could just smudge a bit of the marker and it just tones it down a little. So that's almost the middle done. Let's just work on this belly band a little. I'm going to keep it hanging out the bottom. I quite like the fact you've got the cut at the bottom. And then this is washi tape that I picked up in a pack. I think it's the wedding pack from the range. And because I want it to last, I am double-sided taping it onto the ribbon belly band. And then what we'll do is I'll use that to just tuck the lovely image, they're like picture images on the Lovers in the Air kit, and I'll just use the belly band to tuck those in. There we go, just neatening off, making sure it's all stuck down. So I love this image, really nice. I'm going to stick it onto the book page, just give it a little bit of sturdiness. Again, it is a real word, I'm sure it is. And cut it round. And we're going to stick that just tuck that in under the belly band. And then at some point, I'm going to find some vintagey writing paper. I think there is some in one of the other kits from Be Happy, and there is some in this kit. So we'll dig it out and we'll have, because I want it like like a letter to my love. So it's almost like someone's writing her a love letter. So just pinning that into place. I then did work out that the belly band was quite flimsy, just being a ribbon, and it hadn't really stuck down. It was really quite loose. So just using some masking tape, I'm going to strengthen the band and just make it a bit more rigid. So it's got that paper card kind of rigidness, and then just using that and a little bit of double-sided tape right at the bottom just to stick the belly band to the sheet. The piece of masking tape that's running along my cutting map is a line for me to make sure I try and keep whatever I'm doing above that line so it stays in camera, because I am terrible at dropping things out the bottom of the camera. So you can see we've tucked her in now. I'm going to call her Beryl. So Beryl is inside the folio, and did notice that I have got glue spots and a little few rips on the front of the folio. So using another page out of the kit, I'm just going to cover that front sheet. So I've just drawn around it, just cutting it to size, and then I'm going to cover that front of the folio. Making sure I snip the corners and just to stress a little. This was just a really cheap ink I bought when I was just starting out distressing stuff, and I think once this one runs out I possibly will buy the Tim Holtz distress inks, because I think they don't smudge quite as much and I think they give a better coverage. But for what I wanted when I wanted it to experiment, this one was fine. So lining that up. Now we'll just cover those few rips that are on there from where I stuck it down to the back other papers. Lining it up. I'm just going to snip off the excess. There we go. Just distressing it a little bit, all the way round. And then I think I'm going to put some lace down the edge and add some flowers to the front. Using some of the Be Happy stationery just to create a corner focus, a torn focus. I'm not going to put any extra pockets or folios on the front. I'm literally going to stick this down flat. You could just pin stuff on the front, or you could paper clip it down. But actually I'm going to create just a little corner cluster. Just using more of that Love is in the Air kit. The images are just lovely. The kit is just lovely. So I've got this lovely doily, and it was in a happy mail I was sent, and it's coffee stained or tea stained, not sure, but the colours just work really well. So just straighten it all out a bit. It's a bit creased because it's been in my brown scraps drawer. So think about where to place it, and then just glue it on. And it has got quite these quite large parts, and I'm not sure I overly like having that really large blur of paper. So what I actually did was I tore that bit off and used more of the napkin to create more of a corner. Yeah. And then just get just a little bit more then of the lacy effect. There we go. Just lined that up, overlapped it so it works. And then once it's all stuck down, you don't even notice it's two parts, which is quite clever. Even if I do say so myself. Okay, pop that in the corner on top of the lace. Okay. But then I decided I wasn't overly keen on that pink lace. So I'm going to use this photo in the front. It reminds me of, I've been listening to a podcast about famous people in the kind of the Victorian era. And Lady Daisy was like a socialite, and when her family lived in Warwick Castle. And she kind of reminds me of that. Kind of that late Victorian, early 19th century, 20th century. But yeah, she's got that kind of, that lovely soft lighting, soft picture. It's really cute. And so, yeah, this could be the little socialite and her loves and lives that she had. So it's just some heart paper that's out of my scrapbook page, scraps, pink tray, something. I don't know what I'm saying, barely. And so I'm just going to tear it round. So it's got a bit of an edge on it. I did stick it on at slight angle, so then realise that I haven't overly got enough room to tear, but I do have a little tool that I can use. So I've got this paper distresser knife thingy. It was a freebie in a magazine that someone gave me, I think, maybe. So just distressing that and popping it onto the page. And it wasn't before, it was this point I decided I didn't like the pink lace. It was too pink, it's too salmon. So I tore the lace off. I was like, I try and tuck it under. No, really not sure I like it. So fortunately, with the sticky double-sided tape, you can just tear it off. And I've used this lovely, it's like a really pale, almost buff colour. You know, remember the old buff folders we used to have at school? So just distressing that. And it adds the lace without being in your face. There we go, much better. So just going to pop those together. I am going to stick them flat. I did think about getting out the sticky tabs, but just going to stick them flat down. Just to create the front cover. And I will add some sentiment stickers. I'll grab those out in a bit. I'd like to add kind of a love theme sentiment. Keep the love theme going. This is really off-brand for me, the whole lovey-dovey thing. Although the lace and the flowers and the pink isn't off-brand and the vintagey isn't off-brand. That's quite me. But doing it all lovey-dovey is very not me. So it's actually really nice to do something that I wouldn't normally do. I did send a happy mail probably back in February that I just put all my heart stuff in it and then suddenly realised actually I do need some. So I've had to gather up a few more bits. But fortunately I've got so much stuff. So just using that heart paper, just using a scrap of it and just create another little cluster on the front. So I'm going to have a bit of that paper on the front. And then I'm going to use another one of the stamps, just bringing that theme all the way through. Just really distressing the edge of this one. There you go. So just going to use a little bit of scrap of the paper. I think this was off the cluster I created in the middle. No, the pockets that are under the flaps in the middle. So just going to create that little mini cluster. And you'll see I swap glues throughout my makes. I'm terrible. I will use one glue, then another, then I come back. And I think, oh yeah, I was using that glue for that. A little bit more of the lovely organza. Try not to stab myself this time. Keep your fingers out the way. And then I'm going to stick that down. See, grab my trusty yoo-hoo now. There's no rhyme or reason to the glues I use. I just chop and change between them depending on what I feel like I'm doing. So that's the front cover. We've got the middle pretty much sorted. Not sure what I'm going to stuff everything with. So let's now have a look at this part. And this is where I realised the video was over an hour long. So I did decide once I've done this part, I'm going to stop, and we will probably have a part 3 to decorating. So we'll go from the middle and do the back section. So just deciding which of the papers I want to use. And I love this magnolia. So we've got this lace. That was off the bit that we used on the front cover. Yes. And it's got this lovely lace edge. And I said about there was some paper in there that looked like it was writing paper. So just going to use this to just pop behind, what do we call her, Beryl. So we've got Daisy on the front, we've got Beryl on the inside. So just having that kind of writing paper that I'd said about. So it's that letters from the heart kind of folio. And I just distress that up. I may come back to it. I may print another sheet out of it, and I may come back to it and stick one back to back. But for now, I've only printed one of these. So in the interim between this video and part 3, I may well print another piece, or I may just pop it onto some backing paper, just to take the white off the back. Or I may just leave it as it is. That's the beauty of it, is you can just come and go with it. So using my lovely little heart paper clips, just going to paper clip that into place as well. And then that just finishes off that bit. And then let's go back to the flap that I was doing. So I've decided I chose that rose. I think it's a rose image. I think it's off one of the other sheets I was using. And just backing it onto the back paper. The book paper, yes. Tearing round, and then I'm going to create a little bit of a tuck spot with this one. On top of the folio pocket. There we go. Just giving it a bit of a trim, a bit of a distress. And then I will get my paper flowers in there somewhere. So on the next video, we will start by doing that bit in the middle. And in the Be Happy kit, there's a lovely kind of cluster image that's a clock and with some plants around it. So we'll use that in that middle bit because it's quite a large image. And so that will fit nicely in that. And then we can add some layers to it using the different fabrics and different papers that I've got, some book pages, just layering things up. So just going to have that as a tuck spot. So it's like a secret tuck spot. Just add in my sparkly washi tape to it. And then I'm going to add a few of my paper flowers to finish off. So I'm going to pick a dark one and a light one. And then add them to the page to finish off the corner. So you can see I've put a little pin on the tuck spot. Yeah, like a little secret tuck spot. You can put like your hidden messages in it, or even like a hidden photo or something. Just carrying on that kind of love is in the air, letters of my love type of theme. That kind of late Edwardian, 19th, kind of early 20th century kind of era. Where you would have had to hide your secret messages from your lover. Okay, so just sticking that one down. This one's a bit thick, so I'll just go around the edges of it. And then I realised I've actually got more than one flower here. So I'm just going to separate them. I think there's actually 3 flowers all wedged together. So just sticking that one down. Then going to grab my buttons. Add my buttons to the flowers, and then that is this part done. Stay tuned for part 3 and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.